Hi everyone, welcome back. So as I had mentioned that in this video we will look at how we can have the local user setup being done. So idea is that you should be able to deploy Terraform locally, right? And for that your local user, uh, you know the user which you will use to log into your AWS account, that should have some privileges to create the resources whatever you are trying to create here, right? And then obviously the Terraform internally then creates those resources in your AWS account. So we will look at an easy way to give permissions to your local user. Okay, so let me quickly go to the AWS console. Obviously if you have a AWS account for yourself, if you go to your users section, you will have at least one user which will be your admin user. Okay, so in my case, the user which I'm having is named as Romit, right? And what I have done is uh, basically so idea is that we can create a role. Okay, and that role we can attach a policy, and that policy would have different permissions for different resources. Okay, and ultimately we can attach, or ultimately we can provide permission to this user, IAM user, to assume this role which I'm talking about right now. So we can call it maybe deploy role, Terraform deploy role, whatever. Okay, so that all those permissions which are in the policy we are creating get attached to the role. So the role contains the entire set of permissions required to deploy. Okay, and then you give the permission to the user to assume that role. Okay, that's how it works, right? uh, and vice versa, for the role to basically have the permission to allow Romit to assume the role. Okay, so from the role side and from the user side, both the allow you would do. Okay, so what let me go to the document so that it's clear what I'm saying. Okay, and obviously I'll put this across as part of the reference resources list. Okay, so we create the deploy role first of all. In your This you can do as part of your console only, so this you can do in the console. So under the roles section, you can create a role, call it Terraform deploy role, whatever, ABC deploy role, whatever, because you need this role to deploy stuff, right? And then once you have a role with you, you have to attach a policy. So create a policy, you can call it Terraform deploy policy, and then have it attached to that role. Okay, this is clear. And now what would contain inside the policy, let us look at that. So since we don't want to slow process of deployment, so I generally tend to keep it more open ended. So I don't basically I give all the permissions for all the actions for a particular service. Okay, for example, Step Functions all actions all resources, Lambda all actions all resources, so that we don't face this issue of authorization when I'm creating a resource. And the process can be faster. And then obviously you need the IAM related permissions as well, because you would need to create update role as well. So this particular policy I keep more open ended, where I generally allow all actions and all resources on a particular service. So since for this project we have all these different services which we need, so and this is what that policy looks like at my end for the deploy role. Okay, so you have DynamoDB covered, Bedrock, Textract, because when you will test the lambdas, you would need, your local user needs access to text extract as well, right? When you're testing your local your lambdas locally, the ingestion lambda, compliance lambda, and so on and so forth, right? You have the IAM related permissions, step functions, lambda, S3, everything. Okay, so this is the policy. You attach this policy to the role, the TFE deploy role. I have it named as TFE deploy role. So if you go to this role at my end, you will see that this is the role, and then the policy which this role is attached to is the TFE deploy policy. If I take you there, you will see, what is contained in this policy. So it would be very similar to what we just saw in the document. Okay, so nothing much here. And then you have something known as trust relationship also. So as I was mentioning, from the role side also, you have to allow a user to assume that role. So this is the principle, okay, which you want to allow. Okay, and action is the assume role. So allowing Romit to assume this role is what you are trying to do inside the trust relationship. Okay, so directly you can put this policy here, this statement here, inside of your trust policy of your TFE deploy role. Okay, coming back to the document, yeah, if I go down, this is the second step. So a role policy, attaching policy to the role, and then allowing Romit to assume the role. Got it? So that would come under your trust relationships under the same roles section. And last thing you need to do is allowing Romit or giving Romit permission to call STS assume role. Okay, so this particular permission or policy, small inline policy, would be coming under your Romit user. Okay, so from both the places, you are basically giving the permission that Romit can also assume this role, deploy role at the end of Romit, and then at the end of the role, you allow the Romit as a user to assume that role. Okay, that comes under your trust policy. Okay, so if I go to my user Romit, you will see that I have a small inline policy here, allow STS assume role for Romit. Okay, okay, so I am allowing Romit to assume this role, TFE deploy role. Got it? So yes, this, once you do this and save the entire thing, the local user with the user you are using to basically log into AWS via your local console, would have all the required permissions to deploy your code. And also when you are testing stuff like testing your ingestion lambda, you may need permission for extract, and for compliance you may need permission for Bedrock, and so on and so forth. So those permissions also this user will have provided. So it's very interesting if you think about it. We have only allowed right now, so I have not attached Romit to this Terraform deploy role till now. Have I done it? No, I have not, right? Because I told that you create a role, you attach the policy to that role, and then you give permission to Romit to assume that role, right? I never attached this TFE deploy role to Romit till now. I have not done that, right? So this you need to do now. So the way to do this is here. This also I'll attach somewhere in the resources list. So what you need to do is you would need to configure a profile, with this particular command, AWS configure dev base. Now what happens is, inside of dev base you will have your access key ID and secret access key for that user. So this you can easily get from your AWS console. Okay, pretty easy to get. You can download your access key ID and secret access key. It would get downloaded in a CSV. Okay, use that and uh, configure your dev base profile. Now you can call it anything, ABCXYZ, but since I'll be calling my actual profile as dev, so this I'm calling as dev base. Okay, now once you do that, and if you do a nano to your AWS credentials, if you do this, you would see the dev base having these two settings. The second thing which you need to do is, when you do a nano AWS config, you would need to basically now configure your dev profile. Okay, that dev profile, you would configure the default region, US East 1, the output JSON, and here into this profile you are attaching this role ARN. So get the role ARN from your AWS console. Okay, roles. Okay, TFE deploy role. So ARN would be here. Get this ARN, put it here, and source point this profile to the source profile, so that basically this dev profile points to the dev base profile, which in turn contains the access key ID and secret access key. And what are these? These are key ID and access keys of your user Romit. So indirectly, in profile dev, you have your user Romit getting configured, and what is attached to that user? Your role ARN. That's what we wanted to do, right? That Romit as a user should have this role attached to itself, the TFE deploy role, so that when you use this user to log in, or this profile to log in, you will have all the privileges and you will not face this authorization error, right? So once you have this config set, which means you have the profile dev set. Okay, so then you can basically to log in, you can just use this command, export AWS profile equal to dev. Then it will just basically use your user Romit as the local user, because what does this profile dev contains? It contains this role ARN and this source profile, which internally contains the Romit's user's key ID and access key, right? So when you export, so once this is one-time process. Okay, AWS configure profile dev base, and then a nano on AWS config. This is one-time process. Just do it once and for all, and then to log in every time, unless you want to change anything inside of that, if you have to log in every time, you have to use export AWS profile equal to dev, this command. Okay, this is configure user Romit one time, attach TFE deploy role to user Romit. Okay, so we are doing this activity one time, and then using this command to attach that role and use the user Romit as a local user to deploy and do various stuff okay, by having this command. Okay, so yeah, this is the command I use to log in every time now. Um and yeah, this is what I wanted to basically show you in this video. You will have the link to these resources in the description section, so don't worry about that. uh, and yeah, with respect to our project, we already have the different Terraform settings created, and I think now the time has come to basically uh, do a Terraform apply once. Okay. um, um, and yeah, and then we can also look at developing our ingestion lambda code, compliance lambda code, and take it from there. Okay, so we will basically do the Terraform apply in our next video. um, Hope you are enjoying this video series, because it's a hot topic. Building agentic AI systems in AWS, because AWS is used quite a lot in um, as a cloud, you know and it has a dearth of services internally. So a lot of companies, they are migrating to AWS. um, once their in-house servers, um, or in-house cloud it doesn't work, then you obviously have to go to some renowned cloud service, and AWS is definitely one of the renowned cloud services out there. And by the way, I am a AWS certified developer and a solutions architect. Hope you are liking what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make it simple for you guys, and at the same time, how we can apply it to the very um uh, to the use cases which really matter. The idea is to apply generative AI to automate the things which we were previously doing manually. Yeah, so we want to automate all that which can be done with generative AI. Hope you're liking the series, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.